for online tutors. And seriously, today I'm so excited that Leo is here today to be able to share Bitpaper with you guys. You've been seeing a lot of Bitpaper flying around inside of our group, and it's because it's a really amazing tool. And so Leo is actually going to be bringing us through like all the different features and answering people's questions about this amazing tool so that everybody can feel really comfortable with being able to use it. I often get the question of, is this tool for everybody? You know what? Check it out. See if it's something that you can use, and you'll be able to determine, make that decision for yourself if this is going to be a tool that you want to bring into your online tutoring. If it's not, you know, we find that there's different groups of people that really like to use this tool. Math people are just absolutely loving this tool. So there's lots of really cool features that other whiteboards don't have that really make teaching math super easy. So at least you'll be able to refer other people who are math tutors to this tool to be able to take a look at and see if it's going to meet the needs that they're looking for. You know, I'm really excited to introduce you guys to Leo. As you know, he is part of the Profs over in the UK. It is, in my mind, absolutely the top tutoring company that is out there that helps support online tutors. And I know Atoll has had the wonderful opportunity to be able to get clients from the Profs, and they work specifically with college level tuition, which is kind of a neat twist because a lot of tuition that you see out there is, you know, kindergarten to 12th grade, and then it kind of stops going on up into the college years. So that's what they specifically focus on, are the college tuition. So I'm very excited to introduce all of you guys to Leo, and I'm going to unmute him here. Woo! Here we go. And we got Leo. Hey, Leo.
Hey, Joanne, how are you doing? Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you fantastic. It's wonderful to have you. Well, it's not this morning for you. It's the afternoon.
No, it's not, and it's absolutely terrible weather here in the UK. It's always terrible weather in the UK, but today's especially bad. But hello, everyone, and thank you so much for having me on the call. An absolute pleasure to be here. Yeah, should I start by introducing myself?
That would be fabulous.
We can talk a bit more about that. Sure. Okay, so I guess by professional background, obviously I do private tutoring. I'll be honest, I think most people kind of fall into tutoring a little bit, but by professional background, I was firstly an academic. I have a PhD in financial economics from one of the top sort of business schools in London. I was an academic for a while, so I worked in the business school as a sort of senior lecturer. And then I moved off to work for Bank of America and then JP Morgan in trading, effectively. So I was kind of an investment banker, and realized that that wasn't really for me, and wanted to kind of go back to my roots in education. And teamed up with, at the time, my little brother, he sort of came to me and said, you know, I know you're looking for stuff to do. And actually, my journey started really from the perspective of an investor as opposed to an educator. I was looking post-finance to kind of get involved with some startups. And it naturally felt that education, you know, I came with quite a lot of educational baggage, a lot of insight. And he said to me, well, look, I think there's this really interesting space in kind of, as Joanne pointed out, college level tuition in the UK. And so we sort of looked at it, and we looked at the economics and the dynamics, and the Profs was born, basically. That was in 2014. Today, we count, I mean, we've had tens of thousands of applications, but in terms of like the core group of educators and tutors that kind of work for the Profs, I'd say there's about 300 a month active. Again, heavy focus on university and college level tuition, some kind of professional level tuitions. We deal with things like this Series 7, you guys call it in the States. We call it the CFAs, kind of like professional finance qualifications, professional marketing, professional statistics qualifications. So we started at uni, and we tried to kind of move down into kind of like, when I say down, I mean the age spectrum, down into kind of like high school and then below level tuition. But we actually found that that was an incredibly crowded space, and one that was already very well kind of filled in the UK by a combination of tuition agencies, online tutoring platforms, and kind of self-service tutoring platforms. You know, like I guess you have kind of like Wyzant in the US, and these places where you kind of Gumtree in the UK, where you sort of you post your post your profile and then people choose to engage with you. And we found that really difficult, so we decided to kind of stick to our specialisms and work with this sort of university level students, and heavy focus on kind of social sciences, so kind of business school subjects, finance, accounting, but also engineering, math, sciences, and yes, some humanities, but it's not the same sort of popularity as the more technical disciplines for tutoring. Mathematical subjects sort of lend themselves better, I think. Languages do very well in tutoring, but of all the subjects we cover, the mathematical ones kind of lend themselves to tutoring more. People get really stuck on them, basically, and it's hard to unstick themselves. And in doing that, we came to realize that, okay, we ran a tuition company out of London, and okay, that's an interesting market, but to really expand beyond, the M25, the ring road around London, we knew we needed to kind of move in towards online tutoring. And so we set about engaging with our tutors and working out not only, the first question in our mind was, can you tutor online effectively? This was back in 2013, 14, when these questions weren't really answered in the same way, in my mind. And through our kind of endeavors and our studies and our research and our experience, I've tutored extensively online. I only tutor online as a caveat to this conversation. I work with, again, people doing like their Series 7 exams, my clients all over the world. And so I think we came to realize that, yes, you can tutor online effectively. And in fact, if you're kind of willing to accept that technology improves things, it also improves education. You can do so much with a computer teaching online that you can't do sitting next to someone. You can't record your classes satisfactorily in the same way necessarily. You can bring in things like Bitpaper. You can bring in kind of real-time content creation and kind of gamify tuition. We found that give a kind of particularly a young adult, 16, 17, 18-year-old and university student an iPad and show them that they can have a really cool class with someone across the world, sitting on their sofa. We found that it not only can be done, but actually people were quite receptive to it. They're skeptical when you first suggest it as an outcome or an idea, but they're highly receptive to it once they've had it from a sort of trained, qualified professional. So the couple of things we learned about the proposition of online tuition is, number one, it's not a slam dunk. Some of the best tutors we work with are terrible online tutors, and vice versa, actually. Some of the maybe more socially awkward, brilliant online tutors we have are not phenomenal kind of one-to-one tutors. So it is a slightly different demograph and a slightly different age demograph on average, just from our experience. Not exclusive, but that would be our experience. And so once you sort of, it's a bit like for me, it's a bit like a driving test. Like if you in a vacuum gave someone a car, and you have no idea how to drive it, you couldn't by yourself work out how to operate the clutch and the accelerator to get the car moving effectively. But when someone shows you how to do it, it's actually, it's quite fulfilling, and there is a learning curve and a tech curve as well. In terms of, it's not obvious that you can use things like digital writing pens. It's not obvious the kind of whiteboards that exist. It's not obvious the VoIP technologies like Zoom that exist. And so in interacting with the community, exactly like your community, in interacting with these powerful Facebook groups and learning, and not only learning but teaching other kind of tutors what can and can't be done, we've come up with a system that we feel works, based around effectively Zoom, and you guys have obviously, if completely independently of us, you guys have adopted the exact same technologies, insofar as Zoom is very much the center piece of our online tutoring methods. It is the most powerful, stable, and in many ways satisfactory kind of VoIP technology we found. But in our studies and in our sort of research, we weren't really happy with the whiteboards that existed. It's kind of horses for courses. There's, I don't know, 10s, 20s of whiteboards out there online, and they all are good at different things. But I would say that from the point of view we were sitting, there was no one whiteboard we really wanted to use as kind of professional online tutors. And again, I come at this purely from the perspective of, I'm an engineer to all intents and purposes. I'm a finance guy, but financial engineering is what I teach. And the people close to me are also engineers. We all come from kind of fairly techie college, the British equivalent of MIT, Imperial, effectively. So that the core group of tutors in our collective are very kind of science and technology focused. And so that's the perspective we came at it from. And then what we did basically as a group, this was 2015, we sat and sort of brainstormed, about 5 of us, and took all the favorite and necessary features we felt that you needed to kind of give a really quality online class or through a whiteboard, and then went about building them into Bitpaper. And that's kind of where we got to today. Bitpaper is effectively how I came to know Joanne Attal, who you guys have mentioned the name of at least once. He's part of the Profs Collective, and actually he's increasingly involved in our kind of executive level. He's a big kind of not only social media user, but he's also a very experienced tutor, and I've had dinner with him a couple of times, and we've become sort of socially involved as well, if you like. And through him I've become far more connected with the communities, the global communities. So obviously you guys stateside, another couple of groups I've been chatting to in Asia. It is a very small, actually, and very close-knit community. There's a few sort of fragmented groups of sort of small, very dedicated, loyal users. And so without much of an agenda, Bitpaper's a free tool. We built it. We've pumped a lot of money into it, but the output for us has been that we believe it helps to improve the quality of our offering as a tuition company. The Profs is one tutoring company that I've invested in. I've invested in two subsequently. And I'd say we probably have 400 or 500 monthly active tutors using Bitpaper through our collective. And looking at the website stats, there's another probably 2,000 around the world that are not necessarily directly affiliated with us. So, bear in mind, we've been going less than 2 years on Bitpaper. We've done no marketing apart from just kind of show people and help people. And genuinely, various people have feedback and comments and criticisms in some cases. It's not right for them. But more to the point, for those people who at least see some fleeting use of Bitpaper, we've been building very much their their features and their ideas into the whiteboard to sort of try and make it as comprehensive as possible. So it's still very much in development. It's a beta product. One day down the line we'll probably charge for it. We'll probably charge agencies, not individual tutors, is our current thinking. If I'm speaking to a big New York company actually at the moment, similar to the Profs, they want to white label it, for instance. They want it to look and smell like their whiteboard, dressed up in the back end of their platform, and we'll sell it to them effectively. So again, it will be free to use for their tutors, and we view individual licenses will be free. But yeah, I wanted to come here today and show you some of the things that I've alluded to, insofar as I want to show you some of the things that we feel online tutoring can do and achieve that face-to-face tutoring can't, if you know how to use these softwares and if you use them effectively. Make sense, Joanne?
Yes, it's awesome. Let's do it.
Cool. Okay, so what I'll do actually, let's stress test it. I've never tried. How many people are in the course? 16. So I've never actually tried this many people on the board, but let's have a go. What I'll do is I'll drop a link for you into the chat, and then everyone can click on the link and join the whiteboard. In theory, it should be, in theory, we could then turn off Zoom and actually all have the chat through Bitpaper, but let's not do that. We'll keep on using Zoom for the audio and video. We can write on Bitpaper. And what I'll do at the same time is I'll share my screen onto my Bitpaper view. So then you can choose whether or not you want to see what I'm doing, or whether or not you want to play with it on your own computer, basically. So here we go. I've created a room called Test Room, Ultimate Support Group. Let's paste this into here. So one thing I will say, Bitpaper, again, if you're all sort of, you have to excuse me, some of you are probably more advanced than me in tutoring and online tutoring. In terms of kind of computer and browser capability, when I said before that online tutoring is not kind of a slam dunk from our point of view, there's a few things that are kind of taken as essential before you even get started. So number one, the question is, can you tutor? Let's assume you can tutor. Number two, do you have a really good internet connection? No good internet connection, in my experience, is the single biggest destroyer of online tutoring. If you you get the point. You can't have if there's no communication. You can imagine a live class with lag. It wouldn't work. So poor communication, no go. So I've, in every flat I've ever had, I've put in first thing I do is put in a fiber cable. Particularly in the interests of sort of full disclosure, I charge about $350 an hour to teach finance to people. They will not put up for 1 minute anything less than perfect bandwidth, good audio quality. Like Joanne, I always, when I'm not actually in my home right now, I'm in my office, but when I'm teaching, I always have a headset on, or good audio. But that all begins with good internet. Number two, in terms of like other software, Zoom, perfect. It's definitely the best VoIP technology I've seen for teaching. The record feature is one of the biggest parts. Number one, it's got really good bandwidth handling. It's really stable, and it's got very good conferencing capabilities, way better than Skype in that sense. Skype's good because people are familiar with it and everyone's kind of got a Skype account.
Mhm.
you know, within reason. Zoom's just better. It's more powerful. I know the Zoom guys. I know the CEO. We've interacted quite a lot. I was as well. I wasn't, but my partner was in San Fran a couple of weeks ago, meeting with them. So I've got a commercial relationship with them as well. I'm not plugging them, but I've come to know them through online tutoring. They know that they don't know necessarily Joanne, but they will do. They know that there's sort of this budding group of people using their software that they've not targeted, which is tutors. And I've been letting them know that actually their software has a home as the sort of center of online tutoring, which they found fascinating. So number two, in terms of then Bitpaper, Bitpaper is a browser-based app. We made the decision that we didn't want some whiteboards you have to install on your computer. That's a bit of a nightmare from a tech point of view as a coder. So we built it in a browser. It's more simple, it's out the box, it works on any device, subject to screen size requirements. We've turned it off on mobiles. But I would highly recommend, if you don't anyway, as you know, as an online techie person, you use Google Chrome. It is by far and away the most powerful browser. Any kind of web-based developer would tell you that. Safari is good. Firefox is good. It kind of stops there. If you have any interaction with Internet Explorer, you know, or Edge even, I think you're naturally putting yourself at a bit of a disadvantage on the internet. But here's the Bitpaper room. I would highly recommend you open it in Chrome. The advantages of Chrome and Firefox is audio and video calls work within the browser. Safari, they don't. You can't use Bitpaper in its true form in Safari. However, we're not using the audio and video today, so you know, you can open it in Safari. So there's the Bitpaper link. If anyone wants to click that, they can, but independent of that, there you go, I can hear you joining, click, click, click. I'm going to share my screen onto Bitpaper. Here we go, share screen. And let me pull up here and go to the Bitpaper room and then go full screen. Let me move this to a separate whiteboard so that I don't bug you too much. There we go. And then you should, there you go. I can see all your mice moving. I can see there's a hell of a lot of people in the room. Fine. Okay, so Bitpaper. In its core, you know, use case, you share the URL and you and the student can write and draw to your heart's content. Okay. Someone just joined with an infinitely small screen size. I've never seen that. Okay. So yeah, here we go. Someone just joined with a single pixel for a screen size. That was interesting. So what we can see, what you can all see, I hope, is the screen size of the smallest user who's on here. The kind of problem with sort of browser-based technology is we all have different screen sizes. So the board canvas is actually mathematically infinite, okay? And it basically adapts to the screen size of everyone. So all you do when you open up your browser and make it bigger and smaller, and I can see everyone doing it, is they're just seeing more or less of the board. And so the person with the biggest screen, I'm sure someone here has a huge screen, needs to be aware, and you know, while I'm here, needs to just be aware of where the limits of the user's screen is, basically. Okay, cool. So you share the URL, you get going, and obviously you can write and you can rub out and you can change pens and you can move the board around with the hand tool, you can draw shapes. We'll come to all those kind of features in a minute. One thing I will say, just to be aware of, one of the worst features of a lot of whiteboards out there is that as people write and draw more stuff onto the board, they get more and more tired and it becomes impossible to write. Bitpaper actually never slows down, okay? So no matter how much we all put on this board, and I'm going to I'll stress test it and drop huge images on here, Bitpaper never slows down on any device effectively. So that is actually something that no other whiteboard has achieved technologically, and that was something we spent the most time on. So there's a lot that goes on under the hood here that won't be obvious at face value that make Bitpaper extraordinarily powerful. And number one, I'm just going to change board. You know, the main thing here is that very much we can just keep going forever drawing and writing stuff on this board. Okay. Okay, so number two, in terms of basic features. So once you're both on the board, I won't do it right now, but you can see on, if you're looking at my screen on the Zoom window, not Bitpaper, you can see the plus user icon. That just shows you people on the board, it's green. That's how you share the URL. So if I click that, I can send the URL. Equally, if I just send someone the URL as I did with you, people can join the board. Every board you create is unique, and anytime you share this link, then it will create a unique room that people can join, exactly like Zoom. Step two, typically, depending on how people use it, there's two types of user at Bitpaper. User one kind of uses Zoom for audio and video and then screen shares onto Bitpaper and writes. Maybe they're not using the collaborative feature, kind of like what I'm doing right now. User two, effectively, is the sort of person who does everything through Bitpaper. You can not use Zoom if you want. If you both join the board and then click here, join call with video, it will pop up my video, pop up your video, and we'll talk through Bitpaper as if we had a, if we had a camera and a microphone set up. So some people use it in its true form, which is they do all their tutoring through Bitpaper without the need for an external kind of audio and video protocol like Zoom. Then in terms of the base features, obviously you can write, as everyone's kind of playing with right now. You can rub out here. So the rubber and the pen selector are here. So here's the size. You can put, I don't know, a blue pen. You can make it giant here. There you go. Let me just plug in my laptop 1 second. It's actually another tip for online tutors. If you're using a laptop, always plug in your laptop. Sorry about that. If you don't plug in your laptop, it starts to divert resources and sort of slow itself down. Okay, so you can obviously here, you can change pen settings, you can change rubber settings, and rub out and write to your heart's content. Ruler, straight lines. Now, Bitpaper is largely controlled actually with hotkeys. If I draw a straight line, there's a straight line, freehand. If I hit shift, and I can draw straight lines. There you go, you see? So straight lines are drawn with the shift key, okay? Shift key as well on shapes will fix the aspect ratio of an individual shape. So there you go. And then you can press shift and it will just fix the aspect ratio. So the shift key basically, straight lines, fixed aspect shapes. Control Z and Control X are undo. So we can undo everything that everyone's doing. Sorry, I'm going to undo your stuff, but I will redo it in a minute. There we go. Now I can redo it all. So Control Z and Control X, or Command X and Command Z on a Mac, undo everything. The board, as we've seen, can be moved around. As we've suggested, it's infinite, so we can just move everything around and keep going. Text. So another useful feature of Bitpaper is the ability, sometimes, if you're drawing a graph, you actually just want to type something out. So hello world, my name is Leo. And then I might want to add in some mathematical symbols. So we've got some predefined shapes here. I don't know, the square root of lambda equals, I don't know, epsilon squared, as you wish. Add that to the board. When you add stuff to the board, you can manipulate it to your heart's content. I'm going to create a new board there. There you go. Drop that onto the board there. And you can, blow stuff up and compress it and make it smaller to your heart's content. Obviously, both users can do this. I'll be honest, I've never tried Bitpaper with more than about 4 people on the room. There's like 16 on right now. So, this is kind of an interesting stress test. How is it actually holding up from a writing point of view from people? Is anyone actually writing on here? My suspicion is whether or not it slows down. Is it it's smooth for you guys? Okay, yeah. It's great. Okay, yeah, it's slowed down a bit for me because I'm using heavy resources hosting the screen sharing on my laptop. So yeah, it seems to be pretty smooth. Okay, cool. Yeah, great. Thanks. That's like thumbs up. So let me walk you through some of the other hotkeys and some of the other base functionality. So you can write, you can add shapes, you can draw, you can rub out, you can undo to your heart's content. So main features, greater than and less than. Here, you've got up to 40 boards. So here, what we're doing, as all of us are writing and collaborating, we've been creating a set of pages effectively. If you like, Bitpaper is a pad of paper, and then each one of these is an individual page. So greater than and less than are what change that flow. So there we go, greater than, create another board. I'm basically using these symbols here, greater than and less than. There's another one, there's another one, there's another one. So we're now on board 7. Okay, so what you can do is quickly, as you explain things, flick back and forward. Hello, well, my name is Leo, and the square root of lambda is epsilon squared. But if you remember, we drew this circle here, which showed that on the first page, boundary, try a different color. You see what I mean? So you can very quickly jump back and forward between both, stuff you've written on other slides. It's literally turning the page. Greater than and less than, okay? And you've got up to 40 pages. It's 40 because iPads basically don't have enough RAM. The browsers don't have enough RAM to hold huge amounts of images. So we had to kind of set a limit, otherwise it starts to crash. But within that, you can put whatever you want on the board and it won't slow down. So the most powerful feature of Bitpaper for me is actually the following. I'm going to go back to, so I'm on my MacBook Pro. Many of you on Apple products, just put like yes if you are, yes, PC. just to get an idea, PC, 3 PCs, Mac, 4 Macs, 3 Macs, PC. Okay, so most people are on PCs. All right, fine. I teach on both. At the margin, I do actually slightly prefer PCs, but Macs, I slightly prefer Macs for teaching because they're slightly easier to operate. They have slightly slicker UX. So what I'm going to do, you're seeing my screen share on Zoom. What I'm going to do is use 3 fingers on my mouse pad. Here we go. Here we go. This is just a conversation I was having with a professional tutor actually earlier. So quite often when I'm teaching, I'm actually jumping back and forward between the whiteboard and some external piece of content. The whiteboard is just a piece of paper when you're teaching, but usually you're focused around some external piece of content. So let me find something I might teach. Why not? So nothing too sensitive. Prof students. Let's see. CC security. So this is like the Series 7 in the US. So open up this particular page. Dealing. There we go. So this is about, dealing stocks and bonds or whatever. Let me move this to a separate page so that it doesn't interfere with Zoom. There we go. Nice and quick. Here we go. So this is a particularly important table that we're interested in, right? Company ABC, orders to buy, orders to sell. Now we're going to study that. I'm giving you a live tutorial, obviously. Jump back to the board, open up a new page, and I'm going to drop it straight onto the page. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Right. So now we've got our content, you see. So when I'm teaching, what I find is that I like to screen share because I can constantly jump in and out of some external piece of content, study this, explain this, think exam, exam papers. Quite often you'll be focused on solving particular equations or particular solutions or answering particular questions. So you can naturally jump back and forward between the content and the whiteboard. And then as something prevalent comes up, you can just drop it onto the whiteboard. Now you can do this on both a Mac and a PC. On a Mac, it's Shift Control Command 4, which turns this snapshot key. You can snapshot it, move to the board, open up a new board, paste. So there we go. There's another piece of content, the possibility of opening auction being delayed beyond its scheduled time, whatever. The content's irrelevant, but you kind of get the point. What I can do is very quickly build up content, which then we can solve, So I don't know, therefore the, whatever, you get the point. I can just write out something. The sum of lambda squared equals 2. Okay, you can write it in written form, you can write it in equation form, but you can start to build up kind of electronic resources very quickly, okay? So the Windows users, if you want to use Snapshot Tool, it's not native to Windows. You have to download an update, Windows 10 update, called Windows Creator. If you download that from the Microsoft website, if you press Windows key Shift S as a hotkey, it does the exact same thing. You can snapshot something here, and you can move to the whiteboard, tab on Windows and paste the content again, okay? So over the course of a lesson, what I tend to do is, build up huge, oopsie, let's go back to Bitpaper, sorry. Next, I'll show, I inadvertently showed you another feature, but let me just get back into the room. Hang on, where am I? Zoom, go back to Zoom here. Let's go back to the chat window, chat. So the next thing to be aware of is Bitpaper never loses your notes. This is probably, over other whiteboards, the most important feature, I think. What I did there was I accidentally, in discussing with you guys, I accidentally refreshed the browser. I moved my fingers, 2 fingers on the board and hit back. But by clicking back on the URL, I'm back on the board with all our notes. Most whiteboards, if you have a power cut, if you have a, if your Wi-Fi drops in some cases, you actually lose everything on the board. Okay, so not only does Bitpaper kind of work on all devices and the board not slow down effectively, again, under reasonable use cases, it never slows down with 2 people on the board for sure, posting 40 pages of content. I'm sure you can try and slow it down if you really want to, but under reasonable use cases, it doesn't slow down. And number 2, it's completely stable. If you crash, if you lose, if you drop, if your Wi-Fi drops, you can always come back to your content. Well, I say always, for 24 hours you can come back, but then beyond that you have to save. And I'll show you the save feature in a minute, okay? So over the course of a lesson, I'm building up content. At the end of the lesson, you've kind of got one of 2 options. So you can, obviously there's other features on Bitpaper, like adding in, if you wanted to add in a pre-made shape, so I don't know, whatever. You can add in PDFs, you can add in, let me show a PDF function actually, why not? Let's find something not too confidential here. Documents, let's see. Yeah, why not? So prof students, let's go back to that PDF I had. So for kind of power users, particularly if you want to, a lot of people have PDFs or docs as the central format that their content that they'd have with a student is written in. Again, exam papers, lecture slides, whatever it is, you know, class notes. Bitpaper has an ability basically to import the entire content. So I've chosen a huge PDF here. And what I've done is, there we go. If you're looking at my screen, I've just imported, I think, a 70-page PDF into Bitpaper, okay? All those pages are now here. And what I can do is import either all or individual pages onto the board. So on the board, I'm going to open up a new board, a clean board. Let's get rid of the 7. There we go. Open up a clean board. And I'm going to paste, I don't know, this particular page of the PDF. Drag it onto the board. There you go. It's uploading. Take a couple of seconds. It's, you know, quite a big document. And there's a lot of people on the board. It's got to kind of paste it to all of you. There we go. It's on the board. I'm going to resize it if you're looking at my Zoom window, just to kind of fit it to the smallest person screen that's on here. I can see your screen. There you go. There's the document. Okay. So I can import across pages an entire PDF. I can then go through and solve stuff. You know what I mean? If this was an exam question, I can solve this particular question. I can, I don't know, write all over this to my heart's content. I can then, at the end of the class, re-export it back out to a PDF, you see? So I can import, I don't know, exam questions. I can solve them all on the exam paper or over the whiteboard, as you know, you've got additional space on the whiteboard. And then at the end of the session, I can print and one click, send it back to a PDF. And both you and me can do that, okay? So you have to log in to do this. So if any of you click on the PDF button on the, you know, inside Bitpaper, not inside Zoom, if you're actually on your browser window and you go onto the print PDF button on the right-hand side, you can also print out everything we've just done into a PDF, you know, download it onto your computer. Takes about, I don't know, 10 seconds. It's pretty quick. The only thing you have to do is log in with Facebook or G+. That's just, you know, so we can verify that you're kind of real. We don't use that data in any way. It's just, you know, it's just a log on feature effectively, as opposed to building our own. We use Facebooks and Googles. That's what kind of the cool kids do these days. There we go. It's just printed out the document. It's saved it. I'm going to call it My Notes 1. There you go. Save. There it is. So that's a 2 meg document. I'm going to open it in my browser. So I've just left Bitpaper, separate window, and there you go. There's all our notes in PDF format. So both me and the student can do this, right? At the end of the class, we've got a permanent record of everything we've just done as a group, you see? There it all
now,
is.
Brandy
so,
was wondering if it will export at the same ratio as it was imported.
So there's the problem you have there. The easy answer is no, but you can kind of fudge it. The slight problem here is, if you think about it, computer screens are landscape. A lot of written documents are portrait. So if you're importing like a PowerPoint presentation or similar, which is already landscape, then yes, you can fit it at the same ratio as you imported it. Okay, you can do that. You can, if you import an individual page, you can stretch it out to the whiteboard. And as we develop it, we're still working on this feature. It's one of the newest features. But yes, we're building at the moment an import all function, which on a landscape document would exactly expand it to the whiteboard size for an individual user. If it's landscape like I did, if it's portrait like I did when I imported it, then no, you've got to kind of stretch it out. You know, there's not an easy way around that, unfortunately. Cool. So there we go. You can see the document that we've created. So both you and the student now have a permanent soft copy of the whiteboard. Okay. If that's not what you wanted to do, and I want to save it, below the PDF function, you've got a save paper button. So I'm going to save this as test room USG, click save. What it's now doing is saving this room forever in my particular logon. So what happens when you log on with G+ or Facebook, it saves, it creates an area for you, like a Dropbox area for you on the back end of Bitpaper on the server. And then you can go back to that at any time and go back to any papers you make earlier. So what some tutors do I teach on the fly. So the way I've been showing you to use paper is kind of, I don't really prepare class. In fact, I don't prepare classes. I teach 100% on the fly. People come to me with problems. I solve them in real time. Within reason, I only teach stuff that I know kind of backwards. So I don't really have to prepare for classes. Some people do have to prepare for classes, and some tutors love making kind of pre-made classes. My brother, who's a power tutor as well. When I say power tutor in the UK, they call them super tutors. I mean people who kind of earn like $10,000–15,000 a month routinely tutoring. And that's kind of, again, it's a bit subject and level specific, but kind of the power users that I know, some of them do have huge libraries and databases of material that they made earlier, kind of pre-prepared classes that they teach, particularly for high school level subjects, it seems. Particularly where the course and the curriculum is kind of standardized. So what they tend to do on Bitpaper is they will create a board, a pre-made board with all the particular problems and solutions that they want to solve. They'll then save it in their area, okay, which is what I've just done. So here's ones I made earlier, okay, if you're looking at my screen. There's our room there. If I then open that room again, okay, it will take me into a brand new copy of that room that I can share with old people, okay? So what you basically do is you start to duplicate pieces of paper. You, me, and everyone else in the room has a piece of paper that we can all save. And if we come back to it, we'll go back, we'll come back to this exact paper that we're all on now. But what you can always do is open up a new instance and send it to people, and that will create a new duplicated copy. Here it is. So you guys aren't in this room. It's got a new URL, but I can share this one as well. So what you can effectively do is you have one set of notes made, and then you can share them with different students, and it creates different rooms. Do you see what I mean? Mm-hmm. So if you've got like, Maths 101, if I share it with Joanne, we can have our Maths 101. If I share it with the next person, they can have their 101. And so then those students, if they save it and they share it with other people, they get their own unique copy of the room as well. So it's kind of like over time, Bitpaper it's like shareable paper. The idea of Bitpaper was to exactly reduce, to get rid of written paper. But it has this kind of really interesting share and recreate dynamic where once you've got someone's room, you save it, it becomes your own version of the room and you can share it with other people. Okay. Awesome. So yeah, basically you've got the ability to always save and share bits of paper. So again, back to my papers in here. Takes a couple of seconds to load. Sorry, I've got I know why my computer's being a bit slow. It's because there's a Microsoft a Mac update that's in the background that's hanging, and it's slowing my operating system down. But here you go. These are all actually real rooms or real test rooms. So I don't know. Let's find an actually interesting one. Here we go. This was me teaching, I don't know, finance derivatives. Actually, this looks like call option pricing. Teaching call option pricing to a student. Again, I kind of use Bitpaper mainly as a jot pad, I explain things a lot, but I can come back to this room. She's got this room saved on her server as well. There you go. This is this is probably a year old at least, okay? That gives you an idea of some of the power of Bitpaper for kind of reusability and shareability of rooms, okay? So that's my papers. Next feature, let's have a look. That's it actually, there's not much more to it. I guess power users though, kind of learn the hotkeys. For instance, if you press F on your keyboard, you'll make Bitpaper full screen. And then if you press T, you'll hide the taskbar. So what that does, and you can see in my Zoom window, is I've created a giant whiteboard. I've turned my entire screen into a whiteboard effectively, okay? That's how I actually teach. If you're looking at my Zoom window, how I teach is I'm typically, focused in and out of content. There it is, that particular equation, right, that's really important. I need to solve this piece of maths. There it is. I'm going to bring it onto the whiteboard. There's my giant whiteboard. I'm going to paste it for the student and let's go, okay? Awesome. Yeah, so that's it. Bitpaper allows you basically to have this kind of infinite collaborative surface that you and everyone else in your class can not only, write through and annotate stuff through and import documents. You can also then save and output them again. You can share them with whoever you like and they can save them. And then if we weren't using Zoom, I'd invite you all to actually join an audio call, and then we could have a 16-way audio video call through Bitpaper where we could all see each other's little tiled faces on the whiteboard as well. So yeah, that's Bitpaper basically. The idea here is based around the stability and robustness. Basically, You don't lose your notes no matter what happens, and it should work very well on all devices. One thing I will say to any Windows users on a PC who have a writing tablet like a Wacom, you must turn off, there's a setting called Windows Ink in your Wacom settings. If you go into Wacom settings, there's, I think you go into mapping, and there's a setting called turn off Windows Ink. Windows Ink it's a bizarre native feature of Windows that destroys the performance of pen-based tablets inside Windows, just so you know. So that's kind of a pro tip for me to Windows users. No matter what whiteboard you use, that is true.
Very cool.
So that's Bitpaper. Cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you. That, I mean, I already started like brainstorming like different ways that I could use it with my students, specifically with reading. And I was thinking, oh, you know, when I do these fluency passages, I could input the fluency passage, but then when the kid is struggling, I'm always having to like go back into the whiteboard I use, which is just OneNote, and write the word out and then break it for them. I can just break it right there in the PDF using that tool. So,
yeah, exactly. Just copy, drop it onto the board, write it out, split it up. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that was pretty cool. I was thinking, oh, that would be a really neat way. And you know, in my specific instance, I wouldn't even need to share the whiteboard with the student. This is just a way for me to be able to write on the PDF without having to go back and forth between different screens, which would be kind of nice.
Yeah, exactly. That's actually how I use Bitpaper. I don't actually share. My tutoring's more preachy. It's kind of lectury.
Okay.
So I don't really have any use of them writing or collaborate. You know, if you teach like kind of, I don't know, 11-year-old or 13-year-old maths, the whole point is getting them to write out maths equations,
right?
You know, or getting them to demonstrate their functional and working capabilities. In that case, then they need, if you're going to use Bitpaper, they need there's 3 ways to get the student to replicate writing. Tutors typically buy one of these, right? Some sort of Wacom or Huion or writing tablet. They're cheap. They're kind of like, I don't know, $30, $50. I mean, if you want to go crazy, maybe $100. That's kind of a cheap way. They're quite hard to write. You have to learn to write with them, because if you're writing here, if you like on the webcam, you know, if you're writing here, your hand's actually half a meter over there. So the hand-eye coordination of writing on a writing tablet does take some practice. And that's where a lot of people find kind of online tutoring a bit difficult at first and a bit unfamiliar. A better solution, well, I prefer that solution actually, but a more natural solution is iPad Pros and Microsoft Surfaces. They come with native pen capabilities, and they're much easier to write on. So if your student has an iPad Pro or a Surface, that's perfect, because then they can do the writing that they need to do, and it's really easy. Another way some people have done it that we've seen is touchscreen devices. You know, if you just get them to log on to Bitpaper with an iPad, they can write with their finger. That's kind of the cheapest solution. A lot of people have iPads at home. And if they're kind of tech savvy, they can actually turn their iPad into a writing tablet through Bluetooth with their laptop. So some people have gone out for $6 or $10, bought a stylus for their iPad, turned their iPad into a graphics tablet using, there's some software to do it that comes, I think, native with the iPad. Cool. So there's a few ways to replicate writing, but they're the ones we've seen done successfully. But I agree, like you, I don't invite them to the room. I use Zoom, I screen share onto the whiteboard, and then I write on the whiteboard as if I was teaching in a class.
Yeah. And, you know, my absolute favorite, like you just mentioned, is a Surface Pro. So for those of you who are thinking like, oh, I'm at that point where I would like to buy a new computer, I highly suggest the Surface Pro. And I promise you, I'm not an affiliate of them, although people tell me I should be. I literally, as soon as I moved over to my Surface Pro, I went from a PC to a Mac to the Surface Pro. I have to tell you, this is the most easiest tool to be able to use to tutor online, just because the writing is so natural. I could just, you know, do everything that I need to be able to write on any kind of whiteboard or anything like that, just so easily. It's so natural compared to your regular writing versus trying to like write over here on a board and looking over here on a screen, you know, which is not a natural process. You know, I can write where I need to write on my screen, and it is really, really awesome. And you guys, it's super light. So you can travel anywhere you want with the thing, right? So a lot of us are traveling, and we have to like go from, you know, maybe we're traveling state to state, country to country, whatever the case may be. You can travel from anywhere, doing anything, and easily be able to just set up shop at wherever you want to. My little plug.
And Yeah, the one of the guys who works for me in this office, he's kind of a pro tutor, and he swears by it as well. He exclusively teaches through a Surface, and that's the way the world's going, I think. This kind of like you said, Wacom solution where you write over here, and that's kind of it's a cheap solution, but over time, as the world evolves, writing on screens, I think, will become the de facto standard. You know, as you know, fast forward 20 years, and paper will probably have gone by then. You know.